Hi there, welcome back to my full beautiful disclosure channel and my two friends, George H. Lewis and Laura Eisenhower. Hello, my lovelies. How are you today?
Great, really well.
Doing very well. Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited because it's a really big time in astrology, and this is one of the areas that you both peak in. You're very established, very educated, very long tenured in the science and understanding of astrology, the matrix of the universe, etc. There's a lot to talk about. Both your perspectives are important, and I've never had you both on at the same time, and I'm really excited to bring you two together. I know you do work together, outside of this channel, but it's really lovely for you to come and to my audience together and give your perspective. So, George, let's start with you, my love. Where would you like to go first?
Well, I think really at the end of the day, one of the most poignant things that are affecting us all is relationships. And Laura and I were talking about this off air and in a previous podcast that we had that full moon in Taurus on the 5th of November, which coincided with the Venus activation with Three Eye Atlas. And at the time, Venus was in Libra. And for those who study astrology, Venus rules Libra. And then we had that full moon in Taurus. Venus also rules Taurus. And right now, as we speak today, Venus is at the anaretic degree of Scorpio, making an opposition to Uranus, the planet of new beginnings. So everything in the last month, I'm not saying everything, but a vast amount of the energy has gone into relationships. So how are we seeing this play out? We're seeing relationships in the public sphere be called into question. Oh, we thought he was with him. And suddenly it's not. We're seeing games on the public sphere, but then on the private sphere, which we all are undertaking, experiencing, we're going to have to release, we are being forced to release toxic relationships in order for us to step into our higher selves, in order for us to actually fulfill the soul contract. And it doesn't always mean that the person we're leaving or the person who's left us means that one of us is more wrong than the other. It can do. But ultimately, we have to go away in order to heal, in order to learn more about ourselves, in order maybe to come back or maybe not. And as Alex Collier says, to love someone at a distance. So I think for me, one of the most important things on a personal level is relationships, a realignment of relationships. And obviously, this is over the weekend of Thanksgiving, a lot of that time of self-reflection. What are relationships today? How can we heal broken relationships, whether they're collective ones or emotionally personal ones?
Beautiful. Laura, where would you like to go with this?
Well, just a comment on the Venus opposition to Uranus. It's great because Uranus is very well aspected. The outer planets are still working in harmony with each other, and they're the great initiators. They take us into really deep growth periods. And to see that, flow of energy just keeps us in alignment with just our intuition and our higher self. When we're not mindful, when we're working in sort of a co-pilot reactive sort of state, it's very easy to get caught up in whatever the latest psyops or false flags or just kind of craziness that's out there in the world. But since all that's crumbling and what's authentic is rising, people are able to see through things a lot more easily. So Mercury is also in Scorpio in opposition to Uranus. And I just see it as a major upgrade. So what isn't a vibrational match ends up falling away. And if people consciously move through these, growth periods without running from them because they can be uncomfortable, then yeah, we're really in alignment with the planetary intelligence correcting things on its own body, the planetary grid network. The ascension timeline, which you can't really destroy, you can only be distracted away from, is a lot more obvious to people. And so when falsity falls away and what's true rises, you see a completely different trajectory than what's been engineered or projected upon us or encouraged through a lot of societal programmings and social engineering and unresolved patternings from the ancestries and the way relationships have been modeled to us. So to see, such an upgrade of the heart, there's less of that old program of, duality and relationships that don't go very deep. So that's the thing with reconciliation, because when you can meet each other on that higher plane, it just kind of alchemizes whatever the issues might have been. If two people aren't quite ready for that, yeah, there can be love from a distance. And I think, it's something that we all have to be very careful with. Uranus also, it's a ruler of the 11th house, which has to do with community and networking and friends and wishes, things manifesting through synchronicities and alignment. So, yeah, I just see taking those leaps and steps forward is where people are going to feel more of a desire to step into, and whatever is left sort of toxic and fragmented or unresolved will find its way hopefully into healing, because that's where we're all heading. I mean, this is what is happening on the planet right now. That's the whole concept of ascension, is coming together and healing, and recognizing sometimes it takes a lot of time to move through those layers of misunderstanding and confusion, and sometimes it's just a simple acknowledgement and a frequency shift. So that's something I wanted to just speak on that, and we can shift gears to different planetary alignments, but that's just kind of my thoughts, because it becomes a bigger picture thing, and if it's not about the one-on-ones or the community, it's also what's happening in the body. Massive and rapid healing, doctors being stunned at acceleration in healing, because people aren't just giving their power away or accepting a fixed reality. These are what these activations represent: the end of the old Saturn, outer authority controlling and guiding our journey. It's more about the inner authority, and just tapping in enough within ourselves to say, you know what, I can override that. I can actually do this. I know I can. And then all of a sudden the authority is stunned, because they realize, wow, the miracles come with the human, the soul being in charge of their trajectory on a micro and macro level.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. There's a lot to unpack there, Laura, as always, because we look at, relationships and influence of the heavenly bodies and how they do impact us. I mean, it's so crazy. Even if you look at the 13th sign that is apparently there, which we can get into in a minute, that's another side of Laura's work and understanding. But things still do align no matter what, don't they? They always seem to fit, where we are at a given time. At the beginning, before we hit record, we were discussing Thanksgiving. I'm in England, we don't celebrate it. And I said I get triggered because I only ever focus on our indigenous brothers and sisters, and what happened to them, and what. But I know that's an ancestral wound that some people can heal and some people can't. But I still like to, I guess, lead with that at the moment. So I'm not sure if anybody can hear a very needy dog whining in the background here. Can you hear it? You
A
can.
little bit.
Yeah. Don't ever get a cockapoo. They are so talking of relationships. They're so emotionally needy and rude. And if you're on your laptop, they just jump on your lap and they don't see it. They only see their need. I know a few people like that. But anyway, yeah. So Laura, what are your thoughts and feelings around Thanksgiving and those kinds of relationships that we have to people that sit there afraid, like let's talk about not talk about Trump or Putin at the table. I mean, what are your kind of thoughts on that too?
Well, what we always did at Thanksgiving, we would go to my granddad's, John Ike's son. So, everybody gathering. We could get in a lot of really fueled conversations because there's such a charge on the bigger picture stuff. But we always chose love. Like, let's not get into it. We all know we have integrity. We all know different levels and layers of this larger picture, and how we handle it. But let's just choose love. Let's just make this comfortable. So now that he's passed, we don't all come together as a family. We just kind of stick to ourselves. And I just find, in reflection, even though I was always put at the kiddie table because I'm that controversial daughter that goes into the UFOs and the ETs and the deeper layers, it was more about like playing wiffle ball or doing karaoke or paying attention to the children and their joy and their fun. And the love always like ruled. The uncomfortable conversations, I mean, sometimes it's important for family to get together, but I think, George has something so incredible to share about his experience this Thanksgiving, which is how I feel. We want to collapse the inversions. We want to override them by bringing meaning to what this time of year really represents, because there are such triggers, right? And I know because you're not celebrating and you're looking at it from the observer point of view, it's very easy to feel into that. And that's so necessary to look at and bring up for healing, so that, we can, kind of tell you our perspective, because when you put a different meaning to maybe where that, showed wounding, injustice, and domination, or just something that leaves a trauma trail and discomfort, the meaning that you insert into it, shifts it and changes it. A lot of these holidays have, dark layers to it. Halloween, Christmas, that's not truly the authentic way that we could be experiencing things. And I think it's up to us to shift that perception, so that it can be beautiful. It can be about gratitude. It can be about community. And George, you just had a great experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, you've stayed with my friend Vic, our friend Vic, before. She has a beautiful farm, 60 chickens, and I cooked a huge roast turkey, kind of English style, but I speak as an American here. I love the concept of Thanksgiving because for me, it's not about the excessiveness of presents, which Christmas has become. It's really about soul family or family around the table. And in North Carolina, where I am currently, it's rather beautiful because the community that I am friends with here, which is part of my soul family, we are cooking and providing food for local communities as well. I mean, my friend Vic, she provides vast amounts of vegetables, fruits, and eggs to the whole of the Weaverville kind of community. And to me, that's an expression of the Thanksgiving, the largesse of abundance. It's, don't forget, it's in the time of Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. It's interesting that it is that sense of stepping into the abundance, not the negative, as Laura talks about, which is so true. And which really you zone into, Dani, in the sense of the historical sadness of the grief of how badly treated natives were. But one way to heal that is by being very present, and literally the presence of abundance now, of heart chakra love, authenticity, of sharing stories. And that's very healing. And someone I work in the healing arts with sound and frequency, water technologies, and different things like this. This is a great way for us to heal some of those old ancestral wounds by just being very present with soul family around food. I mean, that's one of the things I've always loved about, say, European culture is the food, is the lunches, the dinners, and that's when you start to converse, share ideas around food, and that's when you really get to know people. Sometimes with a glass of wine or two.
Oh yeah. Oh, I just want to share, Jupiter square with Chiron. So Jupiter
Yeah.
in Cancer retrograding until March
Yes.
has been square to Chiron, the wounded healer, which brings up
Yes.
a lot of triggers and a lot of wounds, and Pluto's involved as well. So,
Right.
what's incredible is, with so many supportive aspects, when these things come to the surface, even if it's awkward conversations, that love wins, that it's not about our differences. It's not about what we might squabble about, or what we might judge in one another because people don't see things your way. And we see the division and how that's been in the world post planned time. I want to be careful what I say on air, but the 2020 window period of all that division, so much of that is coming to the surface, and reconciliation and healing is that great alchemy that the 13th sign offers, which we'll talk about later. But a lot of these bioweapons and assaults can be dismantled and transmuted when the frequency of love and non polarization over these topics moves into that energy field. I've seen my father rapidly heal from things that were taking him down, because he chose to listen to himself. And so, when you see dark weaponry collapsing, because we have that override in us to be a frequency holder of something that collapses the dark weapons, which relies on our low vibration and fear and divide and conquer, is really beautiful to witness. And I think for a lot of people, they might have found that this particular holiday, with the
Yeah.
aspects the way that they were, brought a lot of resolution and togetherness more than
Yeah.
division.
The other thing is, which is, you brought up this earlier, which I love about the Uranian, or Uranus, the sky god. He's very activated at the moment, and much more so than Saturn. It's really important to realize that in the cosmological map right now, Uranus, which obviously will soon be in Gemini, which in a way is like an exaltation. And at that time, next year, in particular February, Saturn's going to be at his weakest link in the entire zodiac. So Uranus not only is stronger, the new is stronger than the old. the inventive creativity is stronger than the old Saturnian stuck energy. To build upon that is the sextile that Uranus is making to Pluto and making a trine to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And so this is where the cosmic map is really supportive towards human evolutionary consciousness. And I have studied a little bit, many of us have, us astrologers, Three-Eye Atlas, and that Three-Eye Atlas for me is absolutely, it's in the myth. What does Atlas do? Atlas, it lifts up the earth. What does Atlas do on the 19th through the 25th of December? It literally makes an exact conjunction with the planet Earth in Capricorn on the winter solstice, a rebuke to the old Mars in conjunction with Mars, the Sun, and the Moon. It's powerful stuff for those who understand astrology. That materialistic, Cartesian, dare I say, Baphomet style of systems is done. And the bookends we're going to see are really from the 19th of December 2025 through the 20th of February 2026, which is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 0 point of Aries, which hasn't happened for over 6,000 years. This is big cosmic play here, and we can be massive participants in this play.
Oh my God. See, that makes me so excited because people forget sometimes they're so focused on the 3D
Of
and the,
course, of
you know,
course.
the barely thriving, barely surviving, that they miss the multi-dimensional levels
Yeah.
and layers that we must look at. We must look at those. And so if we look at that Saturnian, information that conquers all, Satan's in charge, the occult that run the planet, they're all loving, the Saturnian energy, knowing that it's actually going to be that week is a time for everyone to heal up, raise vibration, be loving, like this sort of monkey butt. And it's so exciting. And so the other thing you mentioned about 5 years ago, Laura, the bioweapon window, when that was open, only now, 5 years down the road now, we finally admit and confess. So are we going to learn to deal with everything now while they're trying to implement digital ID and other, prisons of some kind or other? Are we going to allow them again to drag things on another 5 years before we have the pattern of waking up after 5 years? Or are we going to stand united, heal everything that needs to be healed, and take the courage that we all should take at this time?
It's written in the stars, and the stars aren't just outside of us, it's inside our bodies. It's embedded in the planetary grid network. All these inversions and manipulation of the planetary grids were to battery up an artificial timeline and trajectories that would enslave us further, with us consenting along the way because of this problem reaction solution kind of psyop false flag game that they keep trying. This last one, you can't really top it. It woke up so many people. So many are seeing the ramifications, but also seeing the bridge to the timeline that will bring them healing and awakening, and the collapse of that dependency bond within their own being, that removal of dark inverted Saturn and the dependency bond that it encourages, by allowing an outer authority to dictate to you your health, your future, and what you should do in light of a fear response and the trauma loop it causes. People now realize that it's not here to really help us. And so doctors and teachers and people that have been embedded in those industries or the pillars of society that influence and groom our children to work for them and beneath them are walking away, saying this isn't in alignment with my integrity. And some are still kind of stuck and they're scared. But so many people with their missions are rebuilding. Healing centers are coming up everywhere, homeschooling. People are becoming more resourceful and less dependent or waiting on disclosure. We know we're the disclosure. Some people might still look outside of themselves, but they'll recognize that their physical body is wanting to activate them into a greater and more sovereign way of being. And it's a little bit daunting. And so the worst part of the engineering is that when you start to feel anxiety, when you start to feel depression, that you medicate it, that you make it go away, that you project on yourself that something's wrong with you, when it's really a really good sign that your soul is reacting in a way that's necessary in order to begin to break the bond with that dark Saturn to be your own divine authority. And all the planetary alignments, the Saturn Neptune, that's so huge in alignment with the outer planets, how it's been so close to the nodes, how the eclipses have been activating that. It's been throwing people into such a process that if they can just breathe through it, be creative, and get to know it and understand it more, those symptoms and what's erupting within won't feel so scary. You'll realize, oh, you're unearthing your truth. You're unearthing your greater healing abilities. You're beginning to find yourself. It's not about, having to go along with some belief system or some new agey concept. These are internal processes that are in alignment with these planetary configurations that our organs are responding to, our endocrine system, our chakras. And because the planetary grid has been so corrected, the artificial technology is no longer able to continue on. So whatever it tries to throw is their last ditch efforts. But the thing is, so many victims have come forward, and you can see it all over YouTube. People are telling their stories, and people can turn the other way all they want and call it conspiracy. But if you can't listen to a victim and you still use that term or you belittle it, that's going to catch up, because it's just denial. It's not about judgment. It freaks people out, understandably, but denial is another form of this negation of what is surfacing, and
also,
amnesty, and there's Black people that have been blackmailed that are coming clean too.
the other thing is, if I can jump in here, what Laura's saying is so interesting about those who are rigid in their ability not to move towards consciousness. That brittle energy becomes very stuck, and eventually it moves into the body as disease. And this is when you see, some people, it's not really my language, will talk about the harvest, or we'll talk about the idea of ascension. The ones who are going to ascend or awaken are the ones who are doing the heart work, the journey work, the inner work, understanding the real Christed message, which is the message of within, which really comes from the Apocrypha, not exclusively, of course. But if you look at the hidden Apocrypha of the Gospel of Thomas in particular, the journey is within, the Magdalene conversation of the Sophia, that feminine energy of knowing the toroidal field that is the heart chakra, that's coming back online. And obviously Laura can speak really well about that. But I think part of what we're seeing in the cosmic weather right now is there is this schism, and it's really in a schism of not even beliefs, but frequency of vibration. And the ones who are leaning into that authentic creativity, which obviously love is a part of optimistic, I'm looking up to journey, there's the potential, it's childlike, as opposed to I'm stuck, I'm rigid, look at my body language, I'm going down, I'm retreating. It's all in the frequency, right, Laura? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Really, because I mean, our inner self, our intuition, our higher mind. I mean, we know why we're here. We know how to heal. The body knows. It's all this conditioning, engineering, grooming, over the course of our lifetimes. The parents were born to, and what we take on in order to rewrite the script, in order to override or break down whatever is keeping us in a loop, and understanding what to tap into and reclaim in the face of adversity, instead of bend and fold and give that power away for somebody else to be in charge of, so that they can exploit that vulnerability instead of encourage that inner knowingness and that reconnection. So Neptune, Saturn, this configuration is literally just being divine authority and being the manifester and creator of your future, without any possible psyop or news event to take that away. The question is, if they do try another one, are most humans that much more the wiser, or are they just going to be duped again? I don't think they're going to be able to pull anything off, because before that is going to happen, there's too much that's anchored and grounded in the resources that are available. Yeah. And now that people's channels are coming back, there'll always be the experts and the people that have had real experiences to question the official narratives that are being steered. If people have an open enough mind to hear those that have been in this field for a long time, to just begin to have that discernment and read a different book from the bookshelf, not just the one that's coming through the news when it comes to disclosure, so. Yeah. There's many voices, there's many experiencers, there's many perspectives, and then there's your own. So we don't have to wait on anything, and we don't have to just, I don't know, go along with anything. The question is, does it feel right? Does it help you to thrive? Does it bring you peace? What is your body frequency telling you? Just like you were saying, George, does it constrict you? Does it cause you fear? Because you can write something way better for yourself and connect with the dimension way, way higher if that doesn't make you feel good. You're not bound by anything outside of you. That's dark Saturn.
But it's also interesting, like, which comes first? Does biology feed our biography? Or does biography feed our biology? And of course, we always were taught that our biology feeds our biography. But I would say almost more it's the reverse. How we think, what we manifest almost becomes our DNA to an extent, and they're both because we live in polarity consciousness. It's like you can't have just masculine or just feminine. It's this whole dance, and that's part of the Hermetic axiom, of course, the seven Hermetic principles. But we are living in a time of incredible miracle, unprecedented human upgrade. And the planets are there not to tell us, but to show us those are the energetics. And if we tap into them, and we haven't even discussed Three Eye Atlas. I mean, the Third Eye Atlas, as I like to call it, it's pure activation. It doesn't really matter whether someone thinks it's Draco Reptilian or whether it's Palladian Andromedan or whatever it is. To me, the alignment on the ecliptic that it's happened so far, the first time it aligned with Mars in its entire journey was the peace process of the Middle East. You can't make that up. And so what's going to and then with relationships, November the 5th, I've probably, Laura, you're the same. I mean, 15, 20 readings a week. Everyone is going through relationships. Toxic relationships are being really brought up, and we're having to move on. That is Venus, and that's her archetype. What's going to happen when we get to this conjunction with our wonderful planet Terra, Earth, with the conjunction of the Sun, Moon, and Mars on the 19th of December? I suspect it's going to be a massive upgrade and a visual manifestation. It's going to be very embodied in Capricorn, right? I feel there's something going to be very visceral in what we're going to go through, and that materialistic, Cartesian, scientific, it's not really scientific, knowledge base fakery is going to be revealed, and that Neptunian spiritual connection to source, to our own potentiality, is going to be made more manifest.
Yeah. I mean, we're the higher technology. So, those that want to stay truly connected with their soul, the growth is incredible. The expansive qualities just help one to tap into what you can visualize, what you feel passionate about, and what you want to bring forward. Those that might fall prey to getting further away from their soul, I mean, we've already seen where that goes, over the course of many generations, and what we've seen in our galactic history of how the absence of soul or emotion can degrade or compromise and bioengineer the physical vessel to be more like a gray or an EBE. So I just think we're not really in that linear. We have the full spectrum of experience to work with, and it's just such a powerful time, because of that. The epigenetics, I mean, the axis of North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo is really that integration of polarity of the dream realm, the mystical, the unseen realms being more anchored into the physical body as far as like what's possible for the physical vessel. Opening up to a much more multidimensional awareness. It's the restoration of the tree of life. Mercury, Virgo, Earth. How does the mind talk to the body? The body, mind, spirit communication. If it's talking programmings like you and I talk about, it becomes dis-ease and imbalance. If programmings are what the mind is speaking to the body, when it's truth, when it's higher self, when it's higher dimensional, that's where the miracles come in. And that consciousness of rewriting the script, like you said, we activate, the DNA. But, at the same time, learning to have the discernment and not just be unconscious to allowing something in that will maybe even create some false light for a little while, but then begin to erode on some level. And so we see a lot of these technologies, immortality, keeping people alive without the soul development, a lot of the elitists, but I think it's going to be a very more soul-centered approach that the masses will be way more in touch with than there ever being the possibility of transhumanism at this point on a massive scale.
Amazing, amazing. I mentioned to you earlier David Icke's new book that I got sent there. He's coming on my channel soon. I'm trying to read as much of it as I can. It is a big read. It is a study. It is a research. It is his 30 years of
All his books are so huge.
oh my God, this one, I mean, this one is going over, the first part is the new part, his take on everything happening politically as well. But Laura, I mean, in the past, obviously, I've heard you discuss Sophia and the Christos, and, I never fully appreciated what that meant. And as I also mentioned earlier, we come to information as individual souls, I mean, we are, what are we? Who are we? We, as far as I'm concerned, we are consciousness in form. And we are going to go through this experience here on this earth plane, whatever you want to call it. When the minute you say plane, people go, aha, I knew you were a flat earther. It's so funny, isn't it? How people kind of perceive and think they know you, but they really don't. Yeah, so I'm consciousness in form having this experience. And right now, the information that you've been sharing and curating and really living and embodying the Sophia Christos element has really come to the fore for me. For those that have never heard or maybe heard but don't really know what that means, can you take us into what that actually means for people and the story behind it, please?
Yeah. I mean that's really kind of our pre-fall origins, our divine template, the Christos Sophia, the masculine and feminine, that in this particular free will universe, how the Sophionic energy became a part of creation, because it is a creator force of the mother womb, and the Christos not coming in right away. There was a kind of a timing that happened that wasn't exactly a timing that would ensure balance or stability. So this kind of Luciferian or false light or kind of negative ego principle came into the picture. And so the repair work ever since has been what's going on. So part of what happened was Tiamat exploded, Tara fell down into this lower harmonic universe. The manipulation of our DNA took place, and without naming names, because it just gets confusing. I mean, it's really about there being something unstable and there being fractures and traumas already embedded in this planet as it was formed after Tiamat exploded, that was leveraged with dark technology to keep the trauma loops alive. That way we wouldn't heal or recover our Christos Sophia. So yes, there's that larger picture story of like their journey, and they're always, connected in the higher dimensions. But in this free will kind of human experience and experiment, there was the experience of this other energy of how humans learn to have choice when it comes to free will, when it comes to the ego. Is it going to be a vehicle for the Christos Sophia, which we don't have to name, and for it to be embodied? We might just embody it. Or is that ego going to be about domination, control, and the suppression and imbalance? So we've been in this healing process ever since. The 7 root races, the 5 cloister races, the way this whole planetary grid network was set up was to be a planet of soul retrieval. So the Sophionic energy, the Akamoth, was sort of captured and put in this dark mother reversal, and the mothers of darkness and the Baphomet worship and the dark Saturn and moon matrix, Saturn moon matrix, to keep this imbalance alive, has made it so hard for us to naturally find that within ourselves, because it's there. It's always there. It's just gone dormant. So seals and fences were put in our DNA to kind of protect us, but also fences to keep us enslaved. So we always have a choice. Are we going to break the chains, and are we going to dissolve the seals so that we can re-enter these higher dimensions? Or are we going to, stay stuck because we never figure out how to dissolve all of that? So the 13th sign is the remedial flame, connected to another aspect of Sophia coming in to reclaim her body, reclaim the planetary system, correct the reversals. The Venus transits that form a perfect pentagram is a part of that. And the 13th, that has been captured by 13 families, and 13 is a bad number. All this sort of projection upon it. The 13th remedial flame is very connected to the heart of the divine mother, the unconditional love of the mother that never left us, that now is able to fully land. And as of 2010, the sun started to move through the 13th sign. And what it did was showed that the corrections of the inverted pentagram with the ether element going into the ground with something called reversal 55, which put the dodecahedron platonic solid in reversal so that we'd always kind of be looping in this kind of imprisoned planet. Because that's all been corrected, now the ether with the point going up, and that ether element which rules the Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, connected to the quintessence, the divine mother, the Holy Spirit. Now that breath of life and that connection is creating alchemy, the laws of alchemy, purification, the feeling of the unconditional love of the mother, the reunion with the father within our own being. And we're flooded with this, and it just started today. That's why there's such an acceleration, because that has been returned, and it's really, really powerful. So, yeah, the 13th sign, till about December 17th. And it's, right in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, as this alchemical law that we move through to purify the nucleic acids, which are elemental in our DNA. And then we begin to switch on what has been asleep.
It's interesting with Orpheus, because Orpheus hasn't traditionally, as Laura said, been actually on the ecliptic. It just dips in at the last few degrees of Scorpio, the early degrees of Sagittarius. But as we move through a different part of the galaxy, that part is becoming more and more obvious now, which is the 13th sign. It's interesting. As an astrologer, I've always felt in a way we become the 13th sign when we activate all 12 of the archetypes. So, it's funny, when I do a reading, especially with cards, I always pull a 13th card as some sort of suggestion on how you activate the 12 out of the lunar Saturn matrix. It's very interesting, and this is something to really watch on the 19th and the 20th of February 2026. We see not only the conjunction, no one's talked about this, I don't believe, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction exactly to the minute conjoined with the moon. The Saturn lunar matrix on the 0 point of Aries is being revealed for that inversion. I think that's something, Laura, you and I should do a show on that, because I don't think anyone is talking about the moon's influence at the exact conjunction with Saturn, Neptune on the 0 point of Aries. And that is in some ways the great visual and rebuke of the Saturnian system. And, it's something David Icke, I'm sure, will have a very strong view on. I know he's not an astrologer at all, but the moon playing such a big part in that activation, because we see it for being the falsity, the false light, the reflective light. It's not telling a truth. I don't believe we've always needed to have a moon on this planet. I don't believe that moon is beneficent. I'm sure it does some positive things, but I think the negatives outweigh it. They control us. They put us into, the word lunatic literally comes from to be mesmerized by the moon. It's in the language, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to say one thing, but Dani, it sounds like you're about to say something.
No, I'm pulling something up. Go ahead, please, Laura.
Yeah, so there's no way to kind of pack all that in like a few sentences when you asked me about the Christos Sophia, because there's, a second descent from the Sophia energy that led to more destabilization. And it wasn't about fault or blame, right? This is about experience. This is about return. This is about having choice. But when the 12 tones, and exactly what, George said, the 12 tones were, out of whack. When you look at the 12 tones and the 12 flames and the 12 stargates and the way the planetary grid system is set up, the 12 corresponds with the zodiac signs and the 12-strand DNA. So the reversal grid energy and the fragmentation and inversion connected to the 12 required the 13 to come in to braid it all back together and connect with the 0 point unified field in order to heal the 12 tones that corresponds to our DNA and the inversions in the zodiac. Because the thing is, with every planetary body, you can have somebody running a Mars in a very aggressive and warlike way, or somebody running Mars in divine identity, being embodied, allowing it to be a vehicle for the higher dimensional self and higher self to express itself through. Or, it's in its lower octave, Saturn as well. Everybody's got Saturn in their chart. Some are, hooked into the inverted dark Saturn, everything's outside of them and they're going to answer to an outer authority. Or some people are in the self-mastery of Saturn, the higher octave, which is your own authority. You are your own authority.
And Saturn, and isn't it right? Saturn in Aries, right, Laura, allows us to step into that self-mastery much more easily because of the planetary archetypal.
Much more easily, especially with Neptune right there.
Right.
Yeah. So we correct the inversions in our own life when we're like, okay, I'm going to take the higher road. So people don't have to know astrology. It's helpful to see all this and how so much of what we've gone through as a humanity shows up, right, in the lunar energy, like you're talking about, the imbalance, the exiled divine feminine, the masculine that's just been taught to not cry, to go off to war. So the integration is that union within, that love story being completed within our own being. So it's so beautiful. And it brings us back to the Christos Sophia that, like Yeshua and Magdalene embodied, but we all can embody. They just were setting the tone. They were like reminders of what we all can achieve in just really being our authentic self.
Yeah. Good. I just want to share something that I took last night because we're talking about the moon. Here, can you see on Facebook here? Can you see that picture of the moon? You see the arc? Although it's not an arc, it's a full beautiful circle. So I love this. I love it. I
It's like
look
a spiral.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And there was some
Fibonacci.
unfortunate. Yeah, Fibonacci sequence, the natural
Gel.
spiral, the creation, So I was at a store, at a shop getting some milk, and I just looked up and like, oh my gosh, look at that. I love I call it the magic circle. Sometimes, depending on the clearness, you can see a rainbow all around the entire moon. But of course, that is what a rainbow is. It is not an arch. It is a full circle. It goes into the ground. Some people say that's the 5D element. It doesn't really matter. But it's just so beautiful, the magnetism. And it almost looks like a big kind of cross in the middle. And some of these streaks are the filthmongers spraying the skies in the dark, of course, the barium, aluminium, and strontium, that they're multi-level tiny metal particles that mess with our upper respiratory system. This is in my garden. When I came home, I was able to capture it a little better, and it was very cloudy, but I just thought that was so interesting because we have circular here and we almost have a square around and then across. Can you see that? There was so many levels, there's so much kind of geometry going on in that picture. And again,
Can you see?
Earth is
Oh,
okay.
the ring around the moon. I love
The ring around the moon,
Okay.
indeed.
You see the arc around the moon.
So now hopefully I can disappear that and come back to you. But as we were discussing the moon, I wanted to share that with you because, again, knowing that the reality of this matrix that we live in, this simulation, the moon is a spaceship. It's an observatory point. Again, David Icke talks of that too. Many people know that. It's not new news to us, but it's important that we do kind of address all of these different elements of everything as we're putting information out, because we've got to keep bringing in the multidimensional levels, but the 3D people and the truth that peppers into it, that controls it, that creates a whole illusion for us that this is our world, this is how things are, this is how we live, when we're absolutely all breaking out of that Saturnian frequency, coming up and out. And now is the time more than ever for everyone to come together, everyone to drop their beef, heal their beef with each other, and focus forward. And the ones that want to be out there on their own, good luck to them. I send you love, my darlings, I do. But unification and unity of the human species, that is how we uproot and get out of this prison, is it not?
Yes. So, I mean, that's what unity consciousness is. We help switch each other on. We all carry unique, maps that we were born with. We're born at a time when the planetary system is at this particular part of its own healing, right? That we're conduits to by being mindful, coherent, and conscious of the patterning that, might show up that keeps us, stuck, and the growth periods and reminders coming from deep within our own being that sets us free. And how much we can assist one another in this by coming together. That diversity and harmony is true oneness. We don't have to all be the same, that our differences don't need to get in the way. We're learning better communication and just, coming more from a heart-centered place instead of, I don't know. I'll kind of stop there, but yeah, it's everything. It's everything. And that's why they try and pit us against each other. That's why there's been genocides in all this world history that's been manipulated, rewritten, so that we annihilate ourselves instead of come together. but we're proving them wrong. What was good? Sorry, go ahead, George.
No, I also think we need to go back to go forward, meaning we have to integrate some of the ancient knowledge, the ancient scripts, texts into our understanding. Let's take the seven Hermetic principles. And we were talking about well, I think it was the fourth principle, the principle of polarity, that everything is dual, everything has polarity. We need the masculine and feminine, not just in terms of gender, but in terms of understanding. And by consciously understanding polarity, by consciously understanding the third principle, vibration, the second principle, correspondence, and the first, mentalism, you can then collapse the polarity because you've made it conscious. Carl Jung said it so well, and I repeat it ad nauseam: until you make conscious that which is unconscious, you will still call it fate. And so let's introduce back to the scholastics, let's introduce the Hermetic seven principles back for Tom, Dick, and Fanny to learn.
Outstanding. I love it.
Tom, Dick, and Fanny.
And the thing is, when I mentioned the genocides, though, they wanted to wipe out certain root races, because the seven root races, five cloister races, is to rebuild and reclaim that, true divine template. And so yeah, as long as we're unconscious, then we are just accepting just things as they show up, instead of seeing the influence that we can actually bring to it, to change the energy, to change the experience. Yeah, I mean, so if we're blaming each other for something historical, or the color of our skin, or who's the bigger victim in history, how are we going to heal? We have to understand the full scope of the soul's experience, and how many different lives it's lived, and traumas it might still carry from the past. There's no time to bicker. Let's just all love each other and heal.
So I love that. So in a way, what you're saying, Laura, is yes, we need justice, but also let's get into the creativity right now. So even in our communities, there's been some division recently. Yes, that needs to be solved, but ultimately the biggest way to solve it is through the creative process, and allowing, like what we're doing here, to create that spiral helix in order for people to be inspired in their own lives, in their own communities, because that in a way is helping consciousness more than almost anything else. As well, this is polarity, of course. We need, I'm not saying it's Mike King, but we need the revisionism. We need to look at real history. We need to look at, what really happened in the Second World War, the nonsense we've been taught, the Federal Reserve, what its ambition was in 1930. A lot of us, depending on our archetypes, want to study our history, but at the same time, we also have to live in creative magic. So this is the polarity, isn't it? You study a bit of the past, some rabbit holes, but then get into your creativity. If it's too much rabbit hole, you may lose your creativity. If you have too much creativity, have no context of history and the great civilizational journey of mankind, you're kind of lost at sea in your own way. You're living in a beautiful bubble. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think just seeing anomalies, like rewritten history, and that was part of the mission of coming into the Eisenhower family, without being biased. I just want to know the truth. That's the priority. Because if you don't know the truth about your childhood, how are you going to heal from it? If you're given false memories, or you're told that something happened and it didn't happen, you're going to be a mess. You're not going to be able to really, but we don't want to get so lost in it either.
No.
We also want to look at who's been pulling the strings that have created this conquer and divide and this war amongst each other. Let's come together so that those guys stand out, and we realize, wow, look at what they inserted. Look at how they played us. Look at how they leveraged our wounds so that we would, have issue. Or eventually these more mature conversations are going to happen between people. But until then, when I have discord with certain people in the community, I always knew that when they're ready to come back and we're ready to talk.
And you've been, as a friend of yours, you've been incredibly graceful on allowing, and patient, allowing that to happen without always going to fight. And I think it's very, very beautiful, because at the end of the day, when people are ready, you see the polarity, and we all get caught up on it. This is part of our journey. But if we can stay in our authentic truth, there's some real magic in that. And a lot of love is shared in that context.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a chance for growth, of looking at myself. Where am I out of balance? Where what do I need to take from this, and appreciating the pause button instead of trying to do something that maybe telepathically we're working out. Maybe, it's more about the timing of it all. Because the thing is, we have to cut each other a lot of slack. People are carrying a lot of trauma. Everything is like really heightened and accelerating, and I love what you said, Dani. It's kind of like holding that intention, and those that can't be there, you love them anyway. But yeah, it's knowing when the boundaries are necessary and when to walk away without allowing the toxicity to create kind of a virus from it, where it becomes something that would divide a community as a whole. Like we want to prevent that, and take the higher road, so that, like, when parents get a divorce, you don't want to pit the children against the parents, or have them choose sides. That's like so destructive. And I think in building and healing communities, that's how we can kind of lead by example, is taking that stand, because people are surviving cults, or surviving division in community from many lifetimes, or needing to be right and everybody else is wrong. It's all for growth. And sometimes we play these roles that we're not even attached to, just to correct the inversion, to experience it and to heal it, so it can be brought to a higher level beyond our own personal experiences. There's a macro connection to it. It's not all an accident because we're all dysfunctional. Sometimes you have to walk through the inversion to bring it home again. And then people are like, wow, I can do that too in my life. I can come back together with that friend. I can communicate my heart and hold space in a different way than maybe was possible before. So it's a beautiful process. And I just think, yeah.
And that's the principle of rhythm, isn't it? Which is the fifth of the Hermetic principles. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides, its ups and downs, its rises and falls. It's understanding that we often have to have that experience as a soul incarnate. It's very beautiful when you realize that.
It is the constriction and expansion, as we're taught, that the universe breathes in and breathes out. And I think it's admirable when, people have, fluffed up, let's say, and made, public apologies, you know what I mean, or statements. I know I've done that myself. And I think that it's something, if it's genuine, you can feel it. Because I think that people, again, need to remember that we are so good at reading with our hearts. We read first with our heart. The heart feels and sees everything, and then it creates an emotion, a feeling that triggers a thought in the brain, and the intuition's on regardless. But I'm always one for reminding us that, we read from the heart. And sometimes when we see someone, we just can't stand them. Like today, I read a comment somebody wrote on me. They're like, oh, I just can't. And I want it, meaning, oh God, it's Dani. I just can't stand Dani. And I really wanted to write, well, then don't, Karen, because you have to take that approach sometimes, because people could be so wicked and cruel and hurtful, and they just make up stuff. And and the other thing I think that is really right now is if people just stop worshiping, stop creating celebrities, stop creating an idol that you look at as the one with the answers, because you're avoiding your own life, you're avoiding your own healing. So what we tend to do is we can project on someone we think is so great, but at the end of the day, even if someone's, let's say, the greatest architect in the entire world and can design things that would make Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci cry, it doesn't mean they're a good human. It doesn't mean that they themselves don't have growth to do. You know what I mean? And we have to remember that. And I think if we're being honest, this is the best time for healing on the planet. Like you said, the Saturnian energy frequency that's been imprisoning us is coming to an end. We need that awareness. We need to be honestly healing the inner child, healing ourselves, looking at the wounds, not being frightened to go there and find the salve, and put back together relationships or not. And the thing is as well, for me, with the emergency, that word was trying to come out too, frequencies everywhere, that are coming from us that we're emitting. It is a beautiful time to recognize what's mine and what is somebody else's. Am I projecting? Am I blaming? Am I in denial? I mean, do you remember that film, Dory, Finding Dory? I do love that film. I watched it 100 times when it first came out. But there's the big sharks.
Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo, that's it. The big Australian sharks are coming along, and and anyway, at one point, one of the big sharks is like, denial, because people are sometimes just in denial, you know what I mean? So I think that we need to really kind of go back here and focus, the individual, do as much healing as possible, because how the hell are we all going to stand shoulder to shoulder and unify in a frequency, shifting up and out of this kind of this matrix, this constriction, that's kind of in all of us.
Mm.
So beautiful. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm just, yeah, it's it's an internal process, ascension. It's coming from us. It's coming from within. It starts there. How we experience reality depends on our internal conditions, and we just keep moving forward, holding the love, and yeah, it's what God is. God is love, and I know it can be very difficult for people to understand the Sophionic thing, and I didn't really answer that question very well because it's so huge. It's just such a big thing to look at, but a lot of my presentations go in depth about it. But everything is based in relationship. We're in relationship with creation. When we're in authentic relationship with creation and nature and animals and all the herbs and medicines that Mother Earth brings to us, and the father energy, and how we relate to these aspects of creation that conceive and birth, and manifest, and returning to that divine innocence and the nowness is so important, to like you're a painter. When you get that empty canvas, you know that you're in charge of the creation that is going to come forward, and life is no different. And I know you've just done some incredible art pieces.
George, do you want to
Yeah.
share your piece that you shared on, I
No,
know, why?
not yet. No, because it's very personal. I shared it with Laura because I'm not sharing it in public yet because it's a painting. I've done 2 paintings about my daughter.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was on about the one of the ocean that you shared on your
Oh, yeah.
socials this week. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
again, just for people, George and I, we've got so many broadcasts on my channel, and there's a couple devoted to his magnificent, magnificent artwork. I mean, what comes out of you, George Lewis, is just
Thank
unreal.
you.
It really is. Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
Well, as Rumi said, the entire universe is within us, and in a way, we don't create anything unique, but we just are a fractal of the divine. So when I'm painting something, I'm channeling really the divine fractal light. It's that simple, really.
And that to me is just how we're creative,
Yeah.
being. We have choice as far as what we want to align with. We find that stillness and that connection. I remember
Yeah.
this one painting I did in an art class, it looked like a 2-year-old did it. I was like so sad. I'm like, I don't have any talent, and I don't want to go to this class and show the painting because it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look right. And then I just went outside and I meditated and I connected and I said, just give me that direct connect, give me that flow. In the same way I find it just in life. And I just turned over the canvas and painted on the other side, and it was completely different. They featured it. They compared it to famous artists. They were like, their jaw was they were just like, wow, this is incredible. And then I started selling art, and I'm like, you know what? Every time somebody tells me they can't do something, they're maybe a few breaths away, and a little bit. It's not
Well,
as
you were
far
you were
from.
channeling the
I
God.
really connected and I aligned. I
Yeah.
didn't give up and say, I'll never take this class. I'll never do this again because I suck.
Yeah.
I just gave it a little bit more time. Of course, it's not on the level of your art, but it was just the contrast of just
Yeah.
simply taking a breath. I mean, I was just a teenager then, right? But it just my nervous system wasn't as regulated. I was just going through a lot, and it showed. But when I just found alignment, when I found connection, a whole different reality moved through me. So I just always remembered that in life and thought forms and perception
Yeah.
of the way you experience each other, the way you experience nature, the way you experience life. We're in a relationship with creation, or we're in a relationship with the system, and the
That's right.
system, is absolutely damaging. I wasn't connected to the system as a teenager, but it's just reflecting on that. How
Well,
you take 5 minutes, you can change the way you're going to experience your whole day, your whole life.
Well, that's the thing. The system pushes STEM, science, technology, and all that nonsense. And there's a place for it, don't get me wrong, but humans are innately creative. I long to see every human being expressing their divine creative blueprint. You don't have to be a painter. You could do dancing, it could be gardening, it could be writing. I mean, creativity is so broad, but we have to reconnect with our creativity because it does something to the piezoelectric charge in us. It does something to the mitochondria and the molecular structure of the body when we're in flow, you see. That's the toroidal field being activated in the helix as opposed to the downward spiral of inversion.
Mhm.
Yes. And one thing about the 13th sign is it rules the mitochondria. The
Yeah.
mitochondrial DNA is connected to the ether. It's connected to the mother. And when you think of the breath of life, think of why they wanted to shut that up, why they
Yeah,
wanted to
so
mask that,
that's
why they
really
wanted.
it's really interesting you say that. I never thought about that because, of course, in the myth, Asclepius, which is Orpheus, is the grandson of Zeus, the son of Apollo, and he gets put to death by Zeus because he's trying to keep people alive through his activation of the DNA and the mitochondria.
Huh. Well, it goes
Interesting.
from like the fallen and then the mother, coming
Yeah.
to raise what has fallen. So it's got sort of a double meaning. So that's so interesting because that part of the myth. And it's just really that breath of life and how that purifies our internal elements, the nucleic acids of our DNA, because we are basically a reflection of the planetary grids, the multidimensional cosmos, the earth, air, fire, water, ether. When that purifying energy comes in, the earth responds to us, and that's how we clear the elementals and toxicity from the planet. When we do that internal work, like literally we de-weaponize the weapons, the chemtrails, the geoengineering, all of it collapses because basically it relies on humans being socially engineered for its dark weapons to even work, because it's all based in harvesting and siphoning energy, stealing that in a vampiric way. But when we override it, when we're awakened, we collapse that. So we sometimes think that they have to stop spraying, and yes, they have to, they do. But simply overriding it in our own consciousness can dissolve it, because we're now in more of our avatar consciousness where we have more command over the elementals in our own being, which is reflected back to us.
That's so
That's beautiful.
beautiful. Laura, when you're talking about how you switched your kind of frequency and mental state regarding this piece of art, I will never forget a time. It was years ago. I've spoken about it before, but you and I were in Mount Shasta. Was that 2020? We
Can't
were,
remember.
yeah, we were in Mount Shasta, and we were staying at this really nice kind of wooded, complex. Well, you were. I came to visit you. I was staying at a different one, and Ashley Lee was with us, my friend Ashley Lee, and there was a moment where you were speaking at Rob Potter's conference the next day. Alex Collier was there, and Brad Olson was there, and Tony Rodriguez was there, and it was so lovely, and others. And you were like, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. And you had a little bit of anxiety about it because it's important and you take it seriously. And then we were like saying, oh, for God's sake, Laura, you can talk about anything, so many subjects. And then something happened. And it was like I could literally see you kind of energetically reaching up and out. And you brought back this stream of information. And me and Ashley were like, we're like, that, talk about that. You just talk about that. It was just this access that you have. And others have spoken about it. Michael Salla and, Alex Collier, for example, have spoken about how you just stream in this kind of, level of consciousness that actually does make you pretty unique. And George, honest to God, you just put people into hypnotic trance. You both bring such a beautiful kind of way of expressing frequency, emitting information, and it's important information. The science of astrology is so big, it's such an advanced subject, and some people only just want to know, like, am I going to meet the bloke? Who's better for me? What's my star sign? What's the best kind of match for me? Those things are important too. But the overall arcing, the more that we go into these multidimensional layers, the more that we're kind of akin to see that really what's there on offer. Now, George, you made a point that you wanted to talk about the winter solstice in particular. Can you go ahead and take the lead on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something to watch. I mean, Three Eye Atlas came into the news up until about 2, 3 weeks ago, and it's slipped out. I sense we're going to see something very big happening around the winter solstice because it is an unusual conjunction, isn't it, Laura? This with the Sun Moon conjunct Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. I think this is a conversation around Baphomet. It's a conversation around the Devil card in tarot. It's a conversation around the negative Saturn, which is the negative Capricorn. You know, it's interesting. The original Saturn is a sea goat, and the myth is the sea goat. You see, the spirituality is the connection to the oceans, and the fall of the Capricorn energy, the negative Capricorn, is coming out of the water, climbing the peak like the goat, getting to the top of the mountain, and forgetting the roots of the spiritual water, and thinking, "Oh, I own all this land. This is my material success. Here I am, the goat, and I'm no longer the sea goat. I've lost my tail, and I'm not connected to the Neptune, to the divine." And I think something is going to transpire around the winter solstice, which is going to be a reconnection to the Christed energy, to the winter solstice, a rebuke towards Saturnalia, and something, or a revision. I'm curious to know what Laura has to say on this, because the Three Eye Atlas strikes me as it's going to help us, humanity, awaken to our true ontology. And that's the first bookmark. And the final, not the final, but the second bookmark is the 20th of February with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction conjoined the moon at the 0 point of Aries. That's a big one too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, when we look at that devil archetype, it's better when it's actually upside down when you do a reading. It means it just doesn't have as much of a hold over you. And it's part of the challenge and mastery that comes with Saturn. And I feel that mastery is coming to the human race after cycles and cycles of dark history, of hidden occult cabal forces that have been engineering much of what we see. And now that they're being exposed and their dark architecture is not got such a hold on the planet, and humans are able to really see the contrast or see what they've been bound to or consenting to or possessed by even, or influenced by, to be in such a maybe lower way of thinking, where self-worth has been inverted to a certain degree, away from, being your divine self, knowing you're abundant versus wanting to make a lot of money and be rich. And it doesn't matter what you do because it's all about that. It's all about conquest. It's all about the material. It's all about the competition with that. I got more toys. I got a bigger house. I'm not saying everybody thinks that way, but people measure success on that level. It's been very encouraged. A lot of people don't, really think that way. And some people, have great wealth and they're in high integrity. So I know it sounds kind of stereotypical, but
the system's set up that way. That's the point.
Yeah,
the system
where the divine is kept out of it. And that's the loss of the mother, is that, yes, there's father. I'm not taking away father, talking about mother. They're in union. So that
Capricorn's feminine, but Capricorn's feminine. I mean, actually, it's interesting you bring it up. Capricorn's a feminine sign originally, and Aquarius, exactly. And so it's become masculinized. It's lost that, if you like, it's lost its tail. And Laura talks a lot about the North Node in Pisces. I like this. It's making a sextile as well to the Mars, Sun, Moon conjunction on the winter solstice. And that North Node in Pisces is behooving us to step into the spiritual geometry, music. They're related. What is geometry? It's music experience with our ears or with our eyes. What is music? It's geometry that we experience through our ears. It's this whole sense of the music of the spheres, the North Node in Pisces, the music in ourselves. The molecular structure is the galaxy outside, so as within, so without.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Capricorn as opposite Cancer, so when you integrate that polarity, you got the mother and the Saturn, and that, a restoration there, the Neptune Pisces with the Virgo, the tree of life template, the creative imagination anchored in the physical vessel to manifest through one's physiology, a way of life that is an embodiment of your spiritual path. It's not separate. The divine is not just something you do every Sunday. Your connection with God isn't something that you just read in a book. You realize that the scripture is written in nature, and it's more powerful to experience it as a way of life, as an embodied energy, to manifest things like abundance without the reliance on currency that causes you to drop integrity for the sake of wealth, to conquer relationships without the sacred union, or to be bound to something out of a false sense of loyalty, because you've given your power away to a narcissist. I mean, all of these things are ironing themselves out with these kind of configurations. So I really feel like this Capricorn season and what we're moving into is Saturn Neptune conjunction in 0 degrees Aries, and the presence of 3i Atlas, which I just have not a really grounded perspective about, but I love hearing yours. It resonates a lot. That yeah, Saturn, the dark Saturn is gone. The spiritual has walked itself into the law of structure, into, physical reality, for like a lot of people, where currency is going to be connected to integrity and connected to your divine nature, and that exploiting humans and taking advantage and indoctrinating our children and going along with whatever they're feeding, is, the ramifications and the symptoms that come with that have become so severe that it's creating this massive breakthrough on a huge scale.
And isn't it interesting, as you mentioned a moment ago, that Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is the ruler of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's a Capricorn country when it was founded. And in rebuke to that was the birth of the United States in Cancer, in opposition to it. And what you see here in some ways, as the Western system run through maritime law out of London, yes, the Vatican and DC, but out of London, the crown, corona, all these things are being revealed. You start to see the end of the British global system, and Saturn is the ruler of that system, and Saturn is at the weakest part of the entire zodiac, especially on the 0 point of Aries, but still in Pisces, at end of Pisces, conjunct Neptune. We're seeing the dismantlement and the disintegration of that Saturnian system, where we no longer bend the knee to Baphomet.
Right. And the entertainment industry is going to shift too.
Yeah.
People talking about the tunnels and, Diddy and all that exposure, everything that's being exposed, the symptoms of the Baphomet and these reversals and the torture and trauma that children experience, and the MyLabs and all this stuff being brought to the surface. It's that whole architecture is crumbling. And what can now rise is physical, the physical and the divine, in oneness.
Yeah, everything is being revealed. Everything, everyone, every system. That's again why, if there are relationships that are kind of off kilter, like don't get distracted by that. Focus on why we're here. We're here to heal ourselves and we're here to help heal this beautiful planet that we're on that's been, inverted and controlled. And this is not how we came to live. We came to love, to support each other, and to raise our beautiful children in a safe environment. And it didn't happen for all of us or for people older than us, but we're going to make damn sure it happens for the children that are raising up now on the planet. And I know that's a subject that's really, really dear, in particular to the three of us for many, many different reasons. Well, you two are so fascinating. Nobody needs to do anything, just kind of let you two go, You've both got so much to say, and you bring it in such eloquent, beautiful ways. And again, the multidimensional levels that are so important. We need to bring this to a close, but I'll have you back next month, early January, so we can then download what's happening January into February, because it's just such a beautiful team effort, the masculine, the feminine, and all the bits in between. It's so lovely to watch. So, George, I'll come to you first and then you, Laura. George, if you can tell us if you're still doing readings, if you're open for one-to-one sessions and all that good stuff, please, my love.
Yeah, of course. I love doing it. It keeps me very linked in with the pulse, where we are all at the moment. Yeah, I love doing private readings, astrology and intuitive readings. So they can find me through my website, georgehlewis.com, or just email me at georgehlewis@me.com.
Perfect, my love. Thank you so much, Laura.
So my website's cosmicguide.org. I also do astrology readings, and I have a subscription thing, Substack. Most of my channels are on the homepage. And yeah, it's just been so wonderful to join you both today. And thank you for having us.
Of course, my absolute pleasure. I'm very proud of you both. And, you've both, again, I think like most people out there who leading with their heart are just really rising and raising and bringing and unifying and just helping people heal. you know, helping people face their wounds on every level. And it's such a most important time to do that. So, George H. Lewis, thank you, my love. Laura Eisenhower, thank you, my love. And to the beautiful audience watching, thank you for being here. We know that you could be anywhere else in the world right now with all the millions of other distractions that you could just scroll to on YouTube. And I'm so grateful for anyone that subscribes to my channel and comes and hears amazing people like this. Until next time, I am Dani Henderson. I do send love to you from my heart to yours, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.